Hey guys, I'm Ben from Pump Cards, and today I'm going to talk about two new cards that have been announced for Infinite Forbidden, and these are pretty good. I think there are some applications for them. The one is very good because it's a pseudo maxi, and yeah, let's hop right into it. The first one is Vesper Girsu. This one is a quick play spell card. You can only activate it once per turn. And if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters than you do, your opponent can send any numbers of monsters they control to the graveyard, and you apply one of the following effects based on how much they control. So if they send everything away, they halve your life points, so you're down to 4,000. If they have 1 left, you gain 2,000 life points. If they have 2 left, your opponent has to banish their entire hand, and if they have 3 or more left, your opponent cannot activate any monster effects for the rest of this turn. So this card, my opinion on that pretty much varies, because if your opponent's deck is, the goal of his deck is to have as many monster interruptions on the board, like with 5 or more monsters, then this card is really broken, because either way he cannot use them. Either he has to send them to the graveyard, or he cannot use them, because if they have 3 or more left, your opponent cannot activate monster effects for the rest of this turn. So I think this card is pretty good in the right format, because right now if your opponent passes his turn with like Ambler Whale and Snake Eyes Flamberge Dragon, then he will, maybe because he has to send them to the graveyard, he will send the Flamberge, because then the Flamberge will just trigger afterwards. He could even go for SIP to maybe, okay, if he has the field spell also on board, then he will just let it resolve and then summon 2 at once, and with Oak he summons the 3rd, and then if you summon, he can just get the IP and then go IP for Appaloosa or for SB, and pretty much still has everything on board. And this deck also does not counter like decks that really only want to end on 0 or 1 monsters, or that leave 2 monsters on the board but don't leave any cards in hand. So they will just banish everything except 2, and then banish like 1 or 2 cards they have left in hand, but if there is no hand trap in there, they don't really care about it. Yeah, I think this is not really the most broken card, but if in the right format, this card can be good. Okay, so let's go with the next one. The next one is this one. It's level 4 Aqua monster and water, and called Malchami Perulia, and during the turn you activate this card's effect, you can only activate 1 Malchami monster effect, not counting this card. So you can only activate 1 more card of this archetype. There's no other card, like no other monster leaked, so we probably have to assume that this archetype is something like a hand trap archetype thingy. So otherwise this would make sense, because you probably only activate it in the opponent's turn, because it's, if you control no cards, you can discard this card, apply this effect. Each time your opponent normal summons or special summons from the hand, immediately draw 1 card. During the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the sum of cards your opponent controls plus 6, shuffle random cards from your hand into the deck until equal to that sum. So if you it's like if you activate Maxi and you end up with like 20 cards in hand, and your opponent only has like maybe 8 cards on the board, you would have to shuffle back like 12 cards or something. So you end up with 8 cards. If your opponent has 3 cards on the board and you end up with like, I don't know, maybe 10 cards in hand, you also have to shuffle back 7 cards. So you always don't want to exceed your hand more than 6 cards than your opponent controls. So if your opponent plays like Flanderies and he normal summoned 6 times because he was going through all of his birds and 2 Ampins, and he only ends up with like 1 Ampin and maybe 1 set, then you would have to discard like 7 cards and end up with like 2 cards and 3 cards to play around your opponent's Dreaming Town and Ampin. So Flanderies does get hit from this deck, but it pretty much, if it has the right hand, can play around it. And also What's good about this card is it does play through Shifter and is really good against the Shifter decks, like maybe not Flunderies because they can just tribute their board away and end up with like 1 Ampin and 1 set, or like the field spell maybe. So it's always debatable on how good this card is against certain decks, but we have to wait and see and just hope that it is good against Flunderies, because I really hate this deck. So against like decks like Kashtira or like Snake Eyes, or cards that really do summon a little bit from the hand and end up on a bigger board, this card can be really good. Because it also triggers on normal summon, you would have to activate this card in the opponent's draw or standby phase, so you can play around talents. And this card really benefits from the use of other hand traps, because you pretty much want to stop your opponent and get rid of cards in your hand, so you don't have to exceed the +6 clause on this. So if you play against like Snake Eyes and activate this and they normal summon Ash, and you immediately draw, and then you draw maybe Veiler, then you can immediately activate it on the activation of Ash. So you can really play good into decks that suffer from hand traps. I wouldn't recommend to play this card with board breakers, because you can only activate the board breakers in your turn, and if you can't get rid of them, you really have to, you probably have to shuffle more cards into your deck. So yeah, I think this card's really good, but it's really much more balanced than the Max C. Maybe this release will result Max C to get banned, because they maybe just want to make a healthier version of it, because I think most of the players in the OCG just don't like the card, because it's always a mini game between like, oh, you have Maxi, do I have the Called By or Ash, or do I not have it? And then you pretty much lose on the spot because you got Maxi. Or you have to play a deck that's really good under Maxi, like Labyrinth or Flunderies, or I don't know. Yeah, I think this card's really good, and I think with also the banning of like Omni Negates, those cards are really making, really showing that Konami wants to change the format a little bit into like a more healthier version. And yeah, I hope they'll do it and won't release so many Omni Negates and stuff. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a like and a comment, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.